120,000 dead in 6 hours. More than Cannae. More than the entire Vietnam War. Double the first day of the Somme. October 6, 105 BC. The Rhône River runs red. 2 Roman armies, 120,000 men camped within sight of each other. Close enough to see each other's fires. Close enough to hear each other die. They refused to fight together. One commander was a thief who stole sacred gold. The other was an outsider the aristocracy despised. Between their egos and a river full of drowning Romans, the Republic began to die. This wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter, and Rome did it to itself. "30 miles north of the main Roman camps, a cavalry detachment is moving through the forest. 500 horsemen and light infantry, under the command of Marcus Aurelius Scaurus, a consular legate, one of the most distinguished officers in the Roman army. They're scouting ahead, trying to get eyes on the barbarian horde everyone knows is coming. The Cimbrian vanguard hits them like a landslide. They come screaming out of the tree line, thousands of them, painted warriors with long blonde hair and chainmail looted from a decade of massacring Roman armies. The Roman cavalry tries to wheel and form up, but there's no time. The Cimbri don't fight in neat formations. They fight like a flood. They swarm over the Roman positions, dragging riders off their horses, hacking through the light infantry with long, slashing swords. Scaurus fights in the center, trying to rally his men, but it's over in minutes. The Romans break. Some run. Most die. Scaurus, still swinging his gladius, is surrounded. A Cimbrian warrior smashes a shield into his face, and he goes down hard. When he wakes up, his hands are bound behind his back. They drag him through the barbarian camp, a city of wagons and tents stretching for miles. Women and children staring at the captured Roman like he's a curiosity from another world. The air smells like smoke and roasting meat. War horns are blowing. The Cimbri are preparing for something big. Scaurus is thrown at the feet of a young man sitting on a carved wooden chair. This is Boiorix, king of the Cimbri. He's younger than Scaurus expected, maybe 30 years old, with a thick blonde beard and arms covered in gold rings taken from dead Romans. Behind him, a wall of warriors stands silent, watching. Boiorix leans forward and speaks in broken Latin, offering the Roman a chance to talk. Scaurus spits blood, looks the king dead in the eyes, and says this: "Turn back. The Roman people are invincible. If you cross the Alps, you and your entire people will be destroyed." For a moment, the tent is silent. Then Boiorix stands up, draws his sword, and runs Marcus Aurelius Scaurus through the chest. The Roman legate dies without making a sound. The Cimbrian king wipes his blade on the dead man's cloak and turns to his council. The message is clear. There will be no more negotiations, no more talking. The time for mercy is over. The Cimbri are moving south, and they're bringing the slaughter with them. To understand how Rome managed to lose 120,000 men in a single afternoon, you need to understand who the Cimbri were and how spectacularly Rome had already failed to stop them. The Cimbri came from Jutland, modern Denmark, a cold, foggy peninsula at the edge of the known world. Sometime around the year 120 before Christ, a catastrophic event destroyed their homeland. Ancient sources describe a massive storm tide, a flood so devastating it drowned entire villages and salted the farmland. The Cimbri had a choice: stay and starve, or migrate south toward warmer lands. So they moved, not as an army, but as a nation. 200,000 to 300,000 people, men, women, children, elderly, traveling in heavy wagons that served as homes and fortifications. They brought their livestock, their gods, their entire civilization. And as they moved south through Germania and into Gaul, they picked up allies: the Teutones, the Ambrones, the Tigurini. By the time they reached the Roman frontier, they were a rolling apocalypse of desperate, starving warriors looking for land to settle. Rome's first encounter with them was a disaster. In the year 113 before Christ, at Norea in the Alps, Consul Gnaeus Papirius Carbo tried to ambush the Cimbri after agreeing to let them pass peacefully. The treachery backfired spectacularly. The Cimbri turned on the Romans and annihilated Carbo's army. Only a sudden thunderstorm, which the superstitious barbarians interpreted as divine anger, saved the survivors from total extinction. The Cimbri didn't invade Italy. They turned west into Gaul, wandering for years, destabilizing tribes, raiding for food. Rome kept sending armies to manage the problem. Every single one got destroyed. Year 109 before Christ, Consul Marcus Junius Silanus was defeated in battle. Year 107 before Christ, the Battle of Bertigala. Consul Lucius Cassius Longinus was killed, and his surviving soldiers were forced to pass under the yoke, the ultimate humiliation, crawling under an arch of enemy spears while the barbarians laughed. Rome was bleeding, the Senate was panicking, and into this crisis stepped a man who would make everything infinitely worse. Quintus Servilius Caepio. Caepio was a patrician old Roman aristocracy, the kind of man who believed his family name made him superior to everyone else. In year 106 before Christ, as consul, he was sent to Gaul to put down a rebellion. The Gallic tribe called the Tectosages had seized the city of Tolosa, modern Toulouse, and declared independence. Caepio recaptured the city through treachery, and inside the sacred temples, he found a treasure beyond imagination, the gold of Tolosa. 15,000 talents of gold and silver, somewhere between 110,000 and 200,000 pounds of precious metal. Legend said it was cursed plunder, stolen from the Temple of Apollo at Delphi by Gallic raiders a century earlier. Caepio ordered the treasure sent to Rome under armed guard. The convoy was ambushed on the road by bandits. The guards were slaughtered. The gold vanished. The silver eventually reached Rome, but the gold, the immense, cursed fortune, disappeared forever. Everyone knew the truth. Caepio had staged the robbery himself. He had embezzled sacred gold to fund his political ambitions. The man was now fabulously wealthy, morally compromised, and desperate for a military victory big enough to make him untouchable. In year 105 before Christ, the Senate extended his command as proconsul and sent him back to Gaul. The Cimbri were massing on the Rhône River, preparing to invade Italy. Rome needed unity. Rome needed coordination. What Rome got was a disaster waiting to happen. The consul for the year 105 was a man named Gnaeus Mallius Maximus. Mallius was a novus homo, a new man, the first in his family to reach the consulship. In the eyes of the Roman aristocracy, he was an outsider, a political accident, someone who didn't belong in their club. Caepio despised him. To a Servilius Caepio, taking orders from a man of low birth was unthinkable. When Mallius arrived in Gaul with his army, Caepio refused to cooperate. He refused to share intelligence. He refused to coordinate strategy. He camped his army separately and treated the consul like an enemy. The Senate sent envoys begging Caepio to unite the armies. He dismissed them with contempt. 2 Roman armies, 80,000 legionaries total, plus 40,000 support troops camped within sight of each other on opposite sides of the battlefield. Mallius pitched his camp near the Rhône River. Caepio, refusing to camp with the consul, positioned his army forward between Mallius and the enemy. His logic was purely selfish. If the Cimbri attacked, they would hit him first. He could win the victory before Mallius even drew his sword. He was using his own soldiers as a wall to block the consul from glory. The Cimbri, watching this insanity from across the field, could not believe their luck. The Romans were tearing themselves apart. All Boiorix had to do was attack. Let's be clear about who these men really were, because understanding their characters is the only way to understand the massacre that's coming. Quintus Servilius Caepio was not just arrogant, he was a thief who had stolen sacred gold and gotten away with it. He was now one of the richest men in Rome, but that wasn't enough. He needed a military triumph grand enough to make the Senate forget about the missing treasure. He needed to be a hero, and he was willing to sacrifice 80,000 Roman soldiers to get his glory. To Caepio, Gnaeus Mallius Maximus wasn't a fellow Roman commander facing the same existential threat. He was a competitor, a man of inferior birth who had somehow climbed above his station. Caepio would rather lose to the barbarians than share a victory with someone like that. Gnaeus Mallius Maximus was the tragic figure in this nightmare. He was the first man in his family to reach the consulship, a stunning achievement in a society that worshipped ancient bloodlines. By law, as the sitting consul, he was the senior commander in Gaul. He had the authority to order Caepio to obey, but authority on parchment meant nothing when facing a man like Caepio. Mallius tried to negotiate with the Cimbri, offering them land and grain if they would turn back. It was a reasonable strategy. But Caepio sabotaged the talks, treating the barbarian envoys with such violent hostility that they broke off negotiations and prepared for war. Mallius made mistakes, his worst being that he positioned his army with the Rhône River directly at his back, a cardinal sin of Roman tactics. But his real failure was simpler. He couldn't control Caepio, and that failure would kill 120,000 men. And then there was Boiorix, the young king of the Cimbri, leading a desperate migration of 200,000 starving people. He had just personally executed a Roman legate who had the audacity to threaten him while bound and captive. He commanded somewhere between 150,000 and 200,000 warriors, Cimbri, Teutones, Ambrones, Tigurini, all of them hardened by a decade of fighting their way south through hostile territory. Boiorix had tried to negotiate. He had asked for land, for food, for a peaceful end to this nightmare. Rome had refused, so now he was going to take what he needed by force. The geography of Arausio dictated everything. The battlefield was the Rhône River Valley, a strategic bottleneck with the Alps rising to the east and the swift, deadly river flowing to the west. The Cimbri were moving south down this corridor. If Rome didn't stop them here, the road to Italy was wide open. Mallius had positioned his army close to the river, trying to block the direct southern route. His camp held 40,000 legionaries and support troops. It was a defensible position, assuming he had backup, assuming someone was protecting his flanks. Caepio's camp was forward of Mallius, closer to the enemy, with another 40,000 men. When the Senate envoys had ordered him to unite with the consul, Caepio had made a show of moving his camp closer. But he didn't camp beside Mallius. He camped between Mallius and the Cimbri. He physically positioned his army to intercept the enemy first. The strategy was nakedly transparent. If the barbarians attacked, they would hit Caepio's force, allowing him to claim sole credit for the victory. Mallius would be reduced to a spectator in his own campaign. The Cimbri had established their position on higher ground to the north. They had formed their traditional wagon lager, a defensive ring of reinforced wagons that served as both fortress and home. Inside this mobile city, women and children waited while the warriors prepared for battle. The Cimbri fought in what the Romans called a rude phalanx, a dense mass formation with depth equal to its width. The front ranks would sometimes chain themselves together to prevent the line from breaking. When they charged, they would beat their swords against their shields and blow the carnix, a terrifying bronze war trumpet shaped like a boar's head that made a sound like the screaming of demons. 150,000 to 200,000 warriors, high on desperation and fury, facing 120,000 Romans who refused to fight as a unified army. The Cimbri didn't need a brilliant strategy. They just needed to attack. And on the morning of October 6, year 105 before Christ, they got something even better. Caepio attacked first. The morning of October 6, the day before the nones of October, dawns cold over the Rhône Valley. In Mallius's camp, soldiers eat breakfast and maintain gear, going through the routines of men who know battle is coming but don't know when. No one told them it would be today. Across the field, Caepio makes his move. Convinced Mallius will steal his glory, he gives the order that will doom Rome. Attack now. Attack alone. He doesn't inform Mallius. He doesn't coordinate. He doesn't wait for support. The Cornicans blow the advance. 40,000 legionaries form up, shields locked, pila ready. The standards rise golden eagles, cohort emblems, red banners of Rome. From Mallius's camp, soldiers watch the formations move toward the Cimbrian positions on high ground. Caepio's legions march uphill toward the wagon lagers. The Cimbri have been watching the Romans tear themselves apart for days, waiting for this stupidity. As the Romans climb, formations lose cohesion. Gaps open, shields get heavy. The uphill march saps their strength. The Cimbri wait behind wagon walls, silent, watching. The Romans hurl their pila, thousands of iron-tipped shafts arcing toward barbarian positions. Some find targets, but the wagon walls absorb most impacts. The legionaries draw gladii and charge. They hit the Cimbrian shield wall like a wave hitting a cliff. The Cimbri don't break. Their front ranks are chained together, holding through sheer mass. The Romans push uphill, exhausted, disorganized. They can't generate momentum. Germanic longswords find gaps, hacking through helmets into shoulders and necks. The Roman line cracks. The Cimbri counterattack. 100,000 warriors surge down, and the sound is inhuman. Carnae's horns scream, warriors howl, swords beat shields in rhythmic thunder. This is the Furor Teutonicus, Germanic battle fury. Caepio's legions break. The retreat becomes a rout. Soldiers throw down shields to run faster. The Cimbri cut them down from behind. The fleeing Romans reach their camp with barbarians so close they can't defend the ramparts. The Cimbri pour through the gates like floodwater. Inside the camp, pure slaughter. Romans die in tents, at cook fires, trying to arm themselves. The Cimbri take everything: weapons, armor, food, gold. Quintus Servilius Caepio, who started this disaster, runs. He abandons his legions, fights to a horse, and rides south. 40,000 men, gone in 2 hours. From Mallius's camp, soldiers watch their countrymen die. They see Caepio's legions breaking. They see the Cimbrian avalanche. They hear the screams. The psychological impact is absolute. Panic spreads like disease. The command structure has been toxic from the start. The men don't trust their commanders. They don't believe they can win. They're right. The Cimbri wheel south and advance on Mallius's position. The Carnae's horns blow. Warriors howl. Swords beat shields, a funeral drum. 150,000 men marching in step. Mallius's greatest error is now revealed. He positioned his army with the Rhône directly at his back. The river is swift, cold, deadly. Any man who tries to swim in armor will drown. The Cimbri hit Mallius's line like a battering ram. For minutes, the line holds. Legionaries lock shields and push back, stabbing through gaps. But the math is brutal. The Cimbri outnumber them. The weight of assault pushes Romans backward toward the river. Formations compress. Men lose room to swing weapons. Shields overlap at awkward angles. The crush becomes suffocating. Soldiers in rear ranks can't see the front. They only know they're being pushed toward water. The Cimbri keep coming. Fresh warriors rotate forward. Romans have no reserves. Just 40,000 men being slowly compressed against a riverbank. The killing becomes mechanical. Every minute, 10 more Romans die. Crushed, cut down, trampled. The math is relentless. Bodies pile up. Blood turns ground to mud. The river fills with corpses, men who tried to swim and drowned in their armor. This isn't a battle anymore, it's an execution. There's a moment when an army stops being an army and becomes a mob. When discipline dies and 40,000 men all decide, I'm going to run. For Mallius's army, that moment comes mid-afternoon. The line has held for hours through stubborn determination, but casualties are mounting. These soldiers watched Caepio's army destroyed. They've been fighting for hours with the river at their backs, and no hope of victory. The collapse starts on the flanks. A cohort loses its centurion to a spear. The century falters. The men break and run. It spreads like fire. One century runs, then another, then a whole cohort. Within minutes, the entire left flank is in retreat, but there's nowhere to retreat to. The fleeing Romans smash into their own center, disrupting cohorts still trying to fight. The defensive line becomes a compressed mass of panicking men, all pushing toward the river. The Cimbri press the attack. They're inside the broken formations now, stabbing down into compressed bodies. Romans can't swing gladii anymore. No room. Some are crushed to death by their own comrades, suffocating without ever being struck by enemy weapons. The right flank tries to hold, but it's hopeless. Germanic warriors outflank them. Centurions die one by one, cut down screaming orders no one follows. Mallius realizes the battle is lost. He fights toward the river with his guard and plunges in. He's a strong swimmer. He makes it across. Most of his guards drown in their armor. With the consul gone, whatever structure remained evaporates. 40,000 men trapped between Cimbrian advance and the Rhône, all trying to survive. Most won't. The final stage is not battle. It's massacre at industrial scale. Roman formations have disintegrated. What's left is sprawling chaos, Romans dying in every direction, most trying to run, all trapped by geography. The river becomes the focal point of horror. Thousands plunge into the Rhône wearing chainmail that weighs 40 pounds. They're carrying gladii, daggers, helmets. This gear becomes a death sentence in water. The current is swift, the water cold. Most are farmers who've never swum in armor. They make it 20 feet before weight pulls them under. Some try to shed equipment mid-swim, frantically unbuckling, tearing at straps. A few succeed, most don't. The river fills with drowning men. The lucky ones die quickly, a spear through the back, a sword across the throat. The unlucky are pressed against the riverbank, packed so tight they can't move. They beg. They surrender. They throw down weapons. The Cimbri take almost no prisoners. The slaughter at river's edge lasts hours. Bodies pile in grotesque mounds. Romans fall on Romans. The ground becomes a marsh of blood. Some try to hide among corpses. Most are found. Camp followers, 40,000 non-combatants are caught too. Servants, slaves, merchants, wives. The Cimbri don't distinguish. They all die. By late afternoon, the battlefield is a landscape of death. Bodies everywhere, sprawled on ground, floating in river, piled against wagons. Germanic women strip armor from the dead, collecting anything of value. 80,000 soldiers, 40,000 camp followers, 120,000 dead in 6 hours. One afternoon, one river, 120,000 souls. As sun sets, the killing stops, not from mercy, but because there's no one left to kill. The battlefield is silent, except for the moaning of the dying. Now the ritual begins. The Cimbri had vowed to sacrifice everything if victorious. Now they fulfill those vows with religious fervor. Captured weapons, tens of thousands of gladii, pila, shields are gathered into massive piles. Priests pronounce blessings. Warriors destroy them methodically. Swords bent until they break. Shields smashed. The broken metal thrown into the Rhône. The sound of iron splashing into water goes on for hours. Horses are drowned in the river. Thousands of them, led to water's edge and held under until they stop thrashing. The few hundred Romans captured alive are brought for final ritual. Some are hanged from sacred oaks. Others have throats cut over bronze cauldrons. Blood collected for divination. Germanic prophetesses stand over these cauldrons, speaking prophecies. The Cimbri believe they've won the favor of gods themselves. The road to Italy is open. Their people will have land, food, a future. They don't know they've guaranteed their own extinction, that this victory will force Rome to produce Gaius Marius and his professional legions, that in 3 years, at Aquae, Sextiae, and Vercellae, the Cimbrian people will cease to exist, every warrior killed, every woman and child enslaved, the tribe erased. But tonight, they only know victory. They know Rome bled, and they made it bleed. The historian Orosius wrote, "There was no one left to bring the news." He was almost right. A few hundred escaped, but so few that for days, Rome didn't know what happened. The city just knew 2 armies marched north, and no one came back. 120,000 dead, the largest loss in Roman history, a body count unmatched in European warfare until World War I, 14 centuries later. October 6, year 105 before Christ, the Battle of Arausio, the day Rome murdered itself. When news reached Rome, the city descended into panic, unlike anything in its history. This was the terror Cimbricus, the fear of the Cimbri, more profound than the dread after Cannae. After Cannae, Rome still had walls and determination to outlast Carthage, a known enemy led by a genius they could respect. Arausio was different. The enemy was an unknown force of barbarians who had liquidated the largest army Rome could field. The Alps were undefended. The road to Italy lay open. Romans believed they were witnessing the end of their world. The rage of the people fell like a hammer on the men responsible. Quintus Servilius Caepio was stripped of his imperium in an act virtually unprecedented in Roman history. He was tried, convicted, stripped of citizenship, fined into bankruptcy, and exiled. Some sources say he died in prison. Others claim he lived out his years in Smyrna, a broken man haunted by 40,000 ghosts. The gold of Tolosa was confiscated, but the curse had been paid in Roman blood on the Rhône. Gnaeus, Mallius, Maximus faced prosecution as well. Despite being the victim of Caepio's insubordination, he was held responsible as senior magistrate. He was exiled, his career destroyed, his family name ruined. Rome needed scapegoats, and both commanders would serve. In the terror following Arausio, Romans turned to the only man they believed could save them, Gaius Marius. He was a novus homo like Mallius, but also a soldier of supreme capability fresh from victory in North Africa. The law stated a man could not be elected consul while absent from Rome, nor hold the consulship twice within 10 years. The panic was so great that constitutional norms were suspended. Marius was elected consul for year 104 before Christ, while still in Africa. He would serve 5 consecutive years, an illegal concentration of power that wounded the Republic's traditions but provided the continuity Rome needed. Arausio had depleted Rome's manpower reserves. To rebuild the army, Marius opened recruitment to the Capite Censi, the landless poor with no property. These men became professional soldiers serving 16 to 20 years. But because Rome had no pension system, they looked to their general for retirement benefits through conquered land. The legions became loyal not to Rome, but to Marius. The army was no longer a citizen militia. It was a client force bound to its commander. When the Cimbri finally moved on Italy in year 102 before Christ, they met Marius's new legions. At Aquae Sextiae, he annihilated the Teutones, 100,000 killed or captured. At Vercellae in year 101, the Cimbri were exterminated. The entire tribe ceased to exist. The threat was ended, but the cure was more dangerous than the disease. Marius's precedent, illegal consulships, armies loyal to generals, military power as political dominance paved the road to Sulla, to Pompey, to Caesar, and ultimately to the Republic's end. History remembers Cannae because Hannibal was a genius and the defeat was honorable. Arausio killed nearly twice as many Romans, but is barely remembered. It was defeat manufactured by Roman stupidity, by class warfare, by one man's ego, an embarrassment too shameful to examine. So Rome chose to forget, but the dead remembered. The ghosts of 120,000 souls haunted the Forum, silent witnesses to what came after. At Cannae, Rome lost an army, but kept its soul. At Arausio, Rome lost its army and sold its soul to the warlords. The true casualty was the Republic itself, murdered not by barbarians, but by the system of aristocratic hubris that Caepio embodied. Quintus Servilius Caepio wanted glory eternal. What he got was infamy and exile. But his real legacy was this: he killed the Roman Republic, and it took Rome a century to realize it was dead.